Hi there, this is Rebekah Koffler with Censored But Not Silenced, and I'm about to deliver to you today's intelligence brief for June 10th, 2025. In it, I will explain to you the broader threat posed by Los Angeles riots and what to expect next as far as security threats to U.S. homeland. I will address 5 points. First, what are these riots? Second, who is driving them? Third, President Trump's response. Fourth, what to expect next. And we will conclude with measures that we would need to take in order to secure our homeland. Here you go. What are these riots? So there are various names that the media is using. Some call it peaceful protests. Some call it expressions of free speech. Typically what the media is doing, especially the corporate media, is sensationalizing things without really explaining to you the gravity of the situation and the consequences. Well, all of these various names are not the correct terminology. It's just the language manipulation that liberal media is using and those who support violence. The same playbook, by the way, was used during George Floyd riots. So what's going on right now in Los Angeles, and most of you have seen footage of the chaos of all the fires and all the mob, the mayhem. These are not protests. These are not peaceful expressions of free speech. The correct language is insurgency, insurrection, terrorist attacks. Look at the what we call in the intelligence business TTPs of these people, tactics, techniques, and procedures. They're attacking federal officers. They're throwing objects both at federal personnel and at buildings. They're desecrating buildings. They're throwing Molotov cocktails. They're burning cars. They're throwing frozen water bottles at law enforcement in order to inflict more pain, more destruction. They're using leaf blowers and other ordinary household items and weaponizing them. They're putting firecrackers in those leaf blowers in order to achieve an explosion that would hurt more people than they otherwise could. These people are shouting death to America. This language is written on federal buildings. This is what they want. They want destruction. These are not peaceful. They have shut down Los Angeles effectively, right? What would the U.S. government call similar events if they unfolded overseas? And a lot of the times they do. A lot of the times we do have situations when U.S. embassy personnel are under threat, when insurgents breach the security perimeter, creating violence, mayhem, hurting our officers. We do call it by its name: insurgency, terrorist attacks. Why is language important? It is important because in order to solve the problem, you need to deploy the right resources. You can't deploy the right resources unless you properly call the issue. What resources are we talking about? We're not just talking about police and federal officers. I'm talking intelligence, counterintelligence resources, and military personnel. Some of it President Trump did. Number two, who is driving these terrorist attacks? It is not a spontaneous outburst in support of the immigrant community in Los Angeles. Far from it. These are very well pre-planned, in advance, rent-a-mob operations. These operations are aimed at creating destruction, shutting down Los Angeles. How do we know this? There are multiple, what we call in the intelligence business, INWs, indications and warnings. Just give you one of them. Before the attacks, those who were sponsoring and orchestrating those attacks, and we'll get to that in just a minute, were running advertisements, including on Craigslist, offering anywhere from $6,500 to $12,500 US dollars per week, looking for people, or what they call, and I quote actually from some of those ads, tough badass in LA. These were the ads. It is very clear that there are powerful funding sources behind these insurgency operations, or rent-a-mob. So yes, the government can tell you that they are on the case. In fact, the new FBI Director, Kash Patel, has assured us that the FBI is investigating the funding. Well, let me help you where to start, Kash. And by the way, why is FBI always late to the scene? But we'll get to that in just a minute. There are three major organizations that must be investigated right now. And these are in addition to all the George Soros and other usual suspects who are behind the very similar protests, peaceful protests, such as the ones that are unfolding on the university campuses right now, right? So here they are. First, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles. Second, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And third, the Service Employees International Union. One of these groups, by the way, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles, received millions in government funding. So Kash, the first thing to do is to cut off the oxygen from these criminals. Just cut off their funding right now, and you have the capability, Kash, to do this, right? The FBI within hours nailed the J6 insurgents or insurrectionists or whatever. Compared the footage of what was going on January 6th with what's going on right now in Los Angeles, and you'll see the difference immediately. Talking about FBI being late to the game, FBI doesn't just need to investigate what already happened. It has a huge intelligence component to it. So get on those threats before they start hurting Americans and destroying federal property. So, number 3, President Trump's response. Well, unlike the previous regime, Joe Biden's regime, which pretty much has enabled the Los Angeles attacks, and I'll get to it in just a second, President Trump is fully determined to extinguish this. The first thing that President Trump did was he ordered 2,000 National Guardsmen to restore order in the area. He is busy cracking down this insurgency. And then what did he do on Monday? He deployed 700 Marines into the theater. Sorry, I'm using battlefield terminology here because literally the Los Angeles is the theater of military operations. It is the battlefield. You've seen this on TV and on YouTube. So the 700 Marines are coming from the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, 1st Marine Division, and these forces are integrated with the Title 10 forces under Task Force 51 with the mission of protecting federal personnel and federal property in the greater Los Angeles area. This is what the U.S. Northern Combatant Command stated in its announcement on Monday, yesterday, right? So President Trump doesn't mess around. He wants to deliver a blow to these hostile forces to deter anyone who's even thinking about staging similar unrest. What to expect next? This is not a standalone event. It's just one in a series of events. We've had this similar playbook unfold, like I said, during George Floyd riots. We are having it all across the country right now. The anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian protests, we have them on college campuses. And guess what is coming to the town near you? A similar summer of love. Obviously, I'm being facetious. Mostly they're coming to blue states. Why are they coming to blue states? It's very clear, because the blue states have disarmed the law-abiding citizens. You're not allowed to carry a firearm to protect yourself. And the criminals know that the blue states' governments are going to provide support to them. They're gonna do everything that they can, just like the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. He is basically trying to undermine the measures that President Trump is taking to protect lives. So what I am expecting is additional rioting going on this spring, this summer, especially escalating around June 14th, which is both the Army Day and the birthday of President Trump, and to honor the Army Day and U.S. military men and women. President Trump is holding a military parade, so there's going to be escalation. There's going to be escalation around Juneteenth. But let me tell you something that the corporate media will not tell you. It's just, A, they don't want to know. B, they don't know, but more importantly, they don't know. They're not even trying to know. Why is that? Because it actually takes some effort and some brain cells to do what I do, which is intelligence analysis, right? The people who are part of corporate media, whether it's the talking heads or the producers, which are basically youngsters, they have no attention span. They don't have the capacity to read even declassified and unclassified report, because it takes time. It's too long, and they just all they do is entertainment. They're busy trying to get you glued to the TV by running bright and shiny objects. Well, let me tell you this. I expect something this year, if not this year, then next year, that has never happened on U.S. soil. And that is biological and chemical attacks. This is my official intelligence assessment. Why am I predicting that? Well, one of the documents that I am going to refer to, or two documents rather, and back in the intelligence community, I frequently was part of the team who authored intelligence assessment, including the annual intelligence assessment of global threats, which first gets created as a highly classified document, and then it gets declassified, and Congress gets briefed on it, both House and the Senate, and it's pretty much available to the general public if you only have the desire to read it. The second document I'm going to refer to is the 2025 Homeland Threat Assessment that is published, again, in the unclassified realm in 2025, right? It's published by the DHS. So there's a whole section on terrorism. It's a one-pager. You can take a look at it, where basically the DHS assesses that the threat of violence from U.S.-based, and that's the key word, U.S.-based, violent extremists, including DVEs. DVEs is domestic violent extremists. That are motivated by various ideologies and are inspired by foreign terrorist organizations. That threat remains high. So the document is talking about the domestic violent extremist and homegrown violent extremists, HVEs. We're talking DVEs and HVEs. Who are we talking about here? We're talking ISIS, we're talking Al-Qaeda, we're talking Taliban. These guys are here. I'm not talking about some unrest in Somalia or in Afghanistan. I'm talking U.S. soil. They have already infiltrated the United States. This is the official assessment of the intelligence community of the DHS. Why do they infiltrate America? Well, because it's easy, because they view us, they've designated us, the U.S. homeland, and then again, I quote from the DHS threat assessment, as a perceived permissive environment to facilitate access to the United States. And in fact, they are using already proven access points. They know how to get here. And guess what? The Biden administration let them in voluntarily. They opened the gates. There's a whole page in the same document on the persistent threat of chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear attacks, okay? CBRN, we call it. Something that you highly likely did not know, and that is that those attacks were already orchestrated on a small scale in U.S. homeland. In 2024, there were 18, not one, not two, 18 known deliberate chemical and biological related incidents. All of these so-called incidents employed very simple methods. What are we talking about here? We're talking use of ricin and easily obtainable chemicals. You can get it anywhere in the store, order it online. We're talking various types of pesticides, chlorine, bear spray, and other chemical irritants. The intelligence assessment on the likelihood of nuclear and radiological attacks, the official assessment that is that those are not likely at this time. Well, as I am independent now, I don't have to align my intelligence analysis with that of the U.S. government, and I spoke the truth to power when I was an intelligence officer at the DIA. In fact, I predicted Russia's invasion of Ukraine, both in the intelligence community, and then I wrote a book on Putin called Putin's Playbook. Well, let me tell you this. This analysis is not complete that the DHS is putting out in terms of the likelihood of radiological or nuclear. My assessment is that it can change very quickly because the United States has 4 top adversaries, external adversaries. We're talking Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. And the Biden administration's response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine has pushed all of these various adversaries together, right? They are working as an alliance right now. And as many of you likely heard, that Ukraine just staged a Russian version of Pearl Harbor on Russia by attacking with drones Russian nuclear bombers. Okay, so Russia is part of those U.S. adversaries, has been infiltrating their intelligence operatives into U.S. homeland. So I do not rule out the possibility that any of these countries, and Iran, by the way, has been developing clandestine networks within the U.S. homeland for more than a decade right now. And that is also an official U.S. intelligence assessment that is reflected in the 2025 Global Threat Assessment put out by the 18 intelligence agencies, or rather by the DNI and the Director of National Intelligence Office, and is coordinated with the 18 agencies. So that is the official assessment that's been there for the past, I believe, approximately 10 official assessment for the past 10 years. So, and it's pretty easy. Ukraine has demonstrated to us is to smuggle drones into any country, including the United States, by the way. And if anybody forgot that, just a few months ago we had a drone swarms all across the country, including over President Trump's Bedminster location, and over Langley, which is basically a military and intelligence installation. It's very easy to do. And by the way, drones can be weaponized with chemical and biological capabilities, let's say, right? So those attacks are really easy to pull off. And it's been demonstrated that there are enough people willing to sacrifice their lives due to their ideological convictions or whatever. And we've seen that with 2 attempted assassination attacks on President Trump, right? So that's very easy. So the unmanned aircraft systems, UASs, that again comes from the DHS intelligence analysis, can be outfitted with chemical and biological agents. And my next prediction is that there is coordination right now between those violent extremists and intelligence operatives of nation states that have been infiltrated into U.S. homelands. There's coordination between cyber attackers that are targeting our critical infrastructure. So if you marry the nation state, the traditional U.S. adversary, Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, and their capabilities with the capabilities of extremists that are already here in the country, and conduct simultaneously multiple coordinated attacks, both inside and outside the country, you can really, really stretch U.S. law enforcement, intelligence, and military resources, which is what those actors want to do. And again, don't let it be lost on you that Joe Biden and his team voluntarily let in at least 10 million illegal invaders into our country. This is why I'm assessing that the threat of a terrorist attack on a scale that's much larger than what you see right now going on in Los Angeles. That threat is high, is because these people are here and they hold massive numerical advantage over U.S. forces. Let's break it down for you, right? So these military age men, by the way, that have been let in include, these are not just regular migrants, right? It's a fact that intelligence and military personnel, operatives from traditional U.S. adversaries have been smuggled into this country. This is an equivalent of 10 to 13 battalions in military terms, right? So you've got 10 million illegals, an equivalent, illegal invaders, an equivalent of 10 to 13 battalions. What is the size of U.S. military? It's 2.86 military personnel with 1.29 million of active duty, and then about 767,000 National Guard and Reserve members, plus 777,000 of civilian employees, but civilian employees mostly are support. What is the total size of full-time law enforcement personnel? It's 1.2 million across the country. So do your math. So you've got 4 million total of military and law enforcement personnel on the one side, the good guys, right? I'm just adding up to 2.86 plus 1.2 million is approximately 4 million, a little more, right? Versus 10 million of invaders. You see who's holding advantage. And that's just, allow for a huge margin of error, just because a lot of those liberal media types and those who support violence, they constantly crow that a lot of these women and children, and they're just like displaced, refugees and whatnot. Well, let's just knock that off from 10 million to 5 million. So you've got 5 million invaders against 4 million good guys. You can do the math. And by the way, the bad guys are not constrained in terms of rules of engagements. They can hurt the federal officers, no problem. They're willing to die, actually. the good guys are constantly constrained by the protocols, and we see this all the time. That we are willing to put our men and women in harm's way, whether it's foreign wars where we go defend constantly someone else's freedom, and those guys have to fight with basically with one arm behind their back, or it's here inside the country. So number 5, what is the solution? Well, the solution is relatively simple. Do your job. The U.S. government must do its job. The intelligence, the spy agencies, you know what their budget is? It's $100 billion annual. They need to get ahead of the curve. We're constantly reacting instead of preempting the threat. What is the mission of intelligence? The mission of intelligence, the mission number 1, is to provide what we call strategic intelligence warning to the decision makers, to our political and military leaders, so they can devise war plans or domestic plans to protect the U.S. homeland. Do your job. How come we did not know about those LA riots? Or if we knew and didn't prepare for it, that's even worse, right? Well, each PD, police department in major cities, LAPD, NYPD, it has an intelligence component to it. They're men and women who have tremendous capabilities to detect incoming intelligence indications and warnings, or signposts in plain language, of an incoming riot or peaceful protest or whatever. You always have to be, prepared for the worst, right? It's not like it's the first time it happened. I mean, for goodness sake, we had a protest at the Trump Tower yesterday. And again, it's not the first time. Do your job. Watch what's going on. How come that for the second time, these protesters penetrated the Trump Tower perimeter? I get it that it's a public space, right? So you're allowed. But if you watch closely and you have all of the capabilities in your command center, right? There are cameras everywhere. And if you see a team of people coming in during warm weather, wearing hoodies and you see the bulky clothes, you pay attention. So what happened last time around, those people, what they did is they took off their jacket. They were flooding the Trump Tower. And then they took the outer layer of their clothing, and all of them were wearing these red shirts. It's a uniform, right? It was a anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian protest. Well, if you're a trained security officer, that's what you look at. You look for anomalies. It's not that hard. The next thing that needs to happen is you need to develop an early warning system for domestic instability, domestic riots. We already have intelligence centers all across the country. You just need to use that information and to provide that early warning, right? How come we have it for nuclear attacks? We have it for all kinds of other missile attacks and other things, including we have nuclear detonation detection devices deployed on our GPS, okay? So we can do that. And we can't predict an unrest, an insurgency, a terrorist type attack, mayhem that is going on in LA now. Of course we can. We know how to do this. We know what the command and control system is for these attackers. I mean, they do a lot of the stuff on Instagram, on social media. That is part of their command and control. That's how they mobilize. How do we know this? Well, CIA was involved and is involved in various so-called color revolutions through various think tanks, right? Like National Endowment for Democracy. Those revolutions have been staged all across the world. There's Arab Spring, that so we know how to do that. You just need to prioritize U.S. homeland and our security and our freedom higher than the freedom and democracy in all those foreign lands, that we're trying to democratize for whatever reason, even places that will never ever be democratic. So let's just do our jobs. Uh, Obviously, we're grateful to our law enforcement, police officers. A lot of the time, it's simply not their fault because they mismanage, they're grossly mismanaged. Just like a lot of intelligence officers, they're honorable, really dedicated intelligence officers, willing to risk their life daily to protect the homeland, but they're not given the right resources. They're constantly constrained by ridiculous protocols. Same with police. Let's prioritize our security. So this is your intelligence briefing for today. Rebekah Koffler with Censored But Not Silenced. I'm going to deliver this daily. Follow me on social media. On X, my handle is at Rebekah0132, being the code for an intelligence officer. Inform your friends, and I'll catch you later. Thank you all.